Today, we're taking a look at Nintendo and their plans for the future. Now, you might be wondering exactly what I'm talking about. Well, we're now in 2024, we're already 7 years into the Switch's life cycle, and now it's finally time for what Nintendo is planning to do for the future, what their next console is going to be, and we have a lot to look forward to for the next few coming years. Obviously, I'm expecting, despite no announcement yet of any console coming out soon, I do expect the next Nintendo console to still be releasing by the time of the end of this year or the beginning of next year. So we have a lot to talk about in this video, and that's what we're getting into today. So pretty much how I'm going to do this is we're pretty much just going to go down the Nintendo franchises and basically also talk about the console itself. And I guess we'll already start with just talking about what I think the next console will be. Now, do I think this will be a Switch 2 or an enhanced version of a Switch? Absolutely. I don't think they don't really do another Switch they really don't do anything else than another Switch console. The Switch itself gave Nintendo a lot of success in the last few coming years. Some of the highest numbers in some of their franchises, even Mario, Kirby, Pokemon, of course even Zelda because of Breath and Tears. Of course, these franchises have done very well on the Switch, and so honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if we're getting a Switch 2. Now, the other thing I do want to talk about is essentially what the Switch 2 needs to offer. And I think obviously some upgraded visuals and a lot of stuff. Of course, as well with how games run. I mean, some of the games that run on Switch that are especially third-party games, it is just kind of ridiculous that some of the games work the way they do on the Switch. A big example of this being something like Mortal Kombat 1, right? Like Mortal Kombat 1 is a game that a lot of people loved from last year. It's one of the best fighting games, of course, along with Street Fighter 6 from last year. But the way how it runs on the Switch is just straight up abysmal. However, what I will say is that first-party Nintendo games, of course, the games that Nintendo makes and publishes on their own, they run amazing. I mean, a lot of the Mario games, the Zelda games, all of them just look very beautifully, very stunning looking on the console, but it's more specifically for the third-party support. I think it's definitely what should be a parental focus in making sure those games run well on the Switch too. Now, obviously, I still need to continue to talk about some other stuff as well. Personally speaking, as a person who wants the best for Nintendo as well moving forward, because they have a lot of my beloved franchises, please make sure that we still get some of these franchises new games. I mean, it feels like a crime was committed, the fact that we still don't have a new Donkey Kong game. Star Fox is pretty much borderline absent on the Switch. The only time it was literally have a single significant presence was when some of their classic games got added on the Nintendo Switch Online service. It's just, we need a lot of these franchises, big franchises, to come back. You know, Donkey Kong, Star Fox, you know, even with the success of F-Zero 99, you know, that did pretty well. It was a pretty good experience for a lot of people. Give us like a new F-Zero game to enjoy. And of course, hopefully, and maybe, if we do get to that point, if a Nintendo Switch 2 is on the horizon, or whatever the next Nintendo console will be, please, if it's possible, give us the Nintendo GameCube on NSO. I think the GameCube obviously is something that a lot of people have been requesting, a lot of people would want, and in my opinion, it's something I would want too. So if we could get something like that, that would also be very great. Now let's talk about these franchises, right? I think obviously we're going to start with the Nintendo poster boy, Mario. Now, obviously Mario is pretty much Nintendo's golden boy. He is that guy. He's him. And of course we need to obviously look into the fact of what they could do. Now obviously they just released a very recent 2D Mario game in Super Mario Bros. Wonder. Obviously that was very successful and a great game that everybody loves and adores now. Pretty much now what the plan is, I think, is if you're starting the Switch 2, I think a game that definitely has to be there on the launch, or soon, like near soon where the launch happens, like in the year 1 or year 2 of whatever the next console is the next 3D Mario game. I mean, once again, Odyssey released on the year the Switch dropped, and I do think now it is time that we get the next 3D mainline Mario game, especially because a lot of people was anticipating an Odyssey 2, a sequel. I do think we're going to get a new Mario experience in 3D format. It's just depending on what they decide to do. And I think because we have a lot to look forward to, especially because of how many creative ideas was put into Super Mario Bros. Wonder, I do think there's a lot of creative ideas that also could be implemented from that game to try to make this new experience for the next 3D Mario game. I could see that being a possibility. Now, Donkey Kong, please, please, please give me a new Donkey Kong game. I am still going insane that all we've gotten in Donkey Kong are either ports or just his classic games being added on the Nintendo Switch Online. Like, it's kind of insane that we still have yet to even get a new Donkey Kong game at this point, and I would love if we could get a new one. Hopefully another Donkey Kong Country game, maybe even, fuck it, just do another 3D Donkey Kong, or at least try to experiment with it again. I think that would also be very interesting. Zelda, I'm gonna be honest, Zelda is easily probably the biggest Nintendo franchise that might be on a hiatus at the beginning of the Switch 2. The reason why I say that is because Tears of the Kingdom is still kind of new, even though it released a year ago, or close to a year ago by the time this video releases. You know, obviously it's still fresh, it's still an experience people are still at this point enjoying, and like I said, it's still recent. So, with it still being current, I would still suggest that Nintendo try to at least maybe put Zelda on hiatus. But if it's possible, give us another Zelda side game, or even give us a 2D Zelda game to start off the Switch 2. I think that would be great. So that way, around the midpoint of the next Nintendo console's life cycle, that's when I think we should get the next 3D Zelda game, or the next mainline game, whatever it's going to be. But for me, a 2D Zelda game, to just, you know, have a Zelda thing that's going to be fresh on the next Nintendo console, I think would make a lot of sense. Or maybe do the HD ports that a lot of people have been asking. I know it's been a couple years now that people have been asking for a Zelda collection of ports. The collection port being Wind Waker and Twilight Princess. Now, Metroid, we obviously just recently had Metroid Dread, and Metroid Dread did beautifully well, so I do think we are pretty close to getting another Metroid game, at least in the 2D sense. But clearly the biggest focus on Metroid is Metroid Prime 4. I think we've been waiting for that for so many years. We've obviously had that announcement so many years ago, but also to add on to that, you obviously had Metroid Prime 1 Remastered that happened still kind of currently. I believe we're potentially getting a Metroid Prime 2 Remastered, and maybe even Metroid Prime 3 if they're considering it. And I think that's all supposed to be building up the hype for Metroid Prime 4. And dare I say, I am going to be a believer and say that it's going to be the next Nintendo's console's launch title. I do think, even if it's a Switch 2, I think it makes perfect sense for it to be on launch. Now, as for other franchises, let's say real quick, like Yoshi, I think Yoshi will for sure get a game probably in like the second or third year of this console. Yoshi seems to be having at least 1 or 2 games that always release on a Nintendo console, so for me personally, as a person who absolutely loves the character and his games specifically, I would absolutely love if we could get something very soon as well. For Kirby, I think easily the next thing that needs to happen is another 3D Kirby game. Whether that be a sequel to the one we had on the Switch, or just a different type of 3D game. I think the fact that the 3D Kirby game worked so well on the Switch, I think we're bound to get another one for sure. Now, Star Fox, I mentioned it earlier in the video, please give us another Star Fox. I'm begging. Please give us another Star Fox game. That is a franchise I've been wanting to come back for a while now. Obviously, the franchise throughout its history has had a massive spiral, but again, people love Star Fox, people love just in general the franchise, and just even porting some of the games into the Switch or the next console, whatever it is, I'm still believing it's the Switch 2, but still, give us a new Star Fox game, please. And then Pokemon obviously is going to be around. Pokemon is one of the most successful Nintendo franchises. It makes them easy money. And obviously Pokemon is just Pokemon. Everybody knows about Pokemon. It's all over the place. And so, therefore, I do think, obviously we got an announcement that a new Pokemon Legends game is going to be coming out. So obviously that's the focus right now. It's going to be coming out next year. If there's any other Pokemon games, we'll see. If they're going to start a new Pokemon generation soon, we'll have to see it. We'll have to see with that. Obviously now the focus is Pokemon Legends, because now they're making a new game, so we'll see how it goes from there. And just like I said, in terms of other franchises, you know what I'm saying, it is going to be interesting to see what they do. Now obviously, let's talk about some other things real quick, stuff like Mario Kart. I want to say real quick, I do believe Mario Kart 9 is supposed to be coming out soon. I think the Booster Course Pass was an incredible thing to be added on Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. I really do think so. And obviously a lot of people were always anticipating what other characters and tracks that we're going to get during the continuous amount of waves we were getting. And obviously now that that's completed and that has ended, I do think Mario Kart 9 on the next console is definitely going to be an early release on that next console, just like how Mario Kart 8 Deluxe was for this. So it's really up to Nintendo to make that decision. And the reason why I wanted to bring that up is because I do think MK9 actually is going to be coming sooner than we expect. And then obviously Mario Kart 10 will probably be a game on whatever the next console will be. That's probably what I'm going to expect. So in terms of the plans for the future, I do see this kind of being the next 5-year window for Nintendo. Maybe even in the next 10 years, we could be seeing ports, we could be seeing other games being added, and we maybe even could be seeing some franchise revivals, and just a lot of other stuff from 30 parties and other stuff like that. Nintendo is going to be busy. The end of this year and the beginning of next year, I do believe, is going to be a time to be alive. It's going to be crazy, and I'm going to be here all for it, but we just have to wait and see, because of course we're going to be here, and we're going to be supporting Nintendo no matter what, because we know that in the lab, they stay cooking.